Greetings, one and all. We are on the fifth day of the holiday of Sukkot, and I wanted to bring out an urgent message, a wake up call for all of us, for all of Israel today, as we come close to the end of the holiday of Sukkot. So here we go. The seventh day of Sukkot, of course, is the peak, is the highlight of all the holiday of Sukkot. It's the culmination, the highest of the highs. And we must take advantage of, especially the last day. We have 2 more days, so more power to us. But we know that the last day is called Yom Ha'arava, and those are the willows. And the willows, if you look at them, they are similar to a person's mouth. And therefore, on the last day of Sukkot, we have a very long prayer service. And really, the key to success on this last day of Sukkot is our mouth, is our prayers, and the reciting Psalms. This is very important. This is written in all of the books. Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach of Jerusalem, people would come to him on the last day, and he would be very uncomfortable. He would shorten his words and write back it to the book of Psalms. And this is brought down in the classical work of Yesod V'Shoresh HaAvodah on the holiday of Sukkot, and many, many other books. So we have to take advantage of this last day before the gates are closing, and cry out and pray, and again and again and again before the gates close. And I'm going to bring a few issues that we must concentrate on at this time of history. Okay, so let's take it from the top. Number one, on the last day of Sukkot, we go around, we circle where the Torah is standing. We go around the table 7 times. Why 7 times? This is what was done in the temple when the temple was in Jerusalem, and this was done in the temple in memory of Joshua and the fall of Jericho. Now, 7 times for 7 days, they went around Jericho. They circled Jericho 1 time, and on the last day, on Shabbat, they encircled 7 times. And then, of course, the walls came tumbling down. But it's very important that there are many sources that tell us Jericho represented all 70 nations. We have sources that tell us that all of the nations wanted a share in the land of Israel, and specifically the city of Jericho. All 70 nations wanted a part, have a share, own property in the land of Israel, but specifically Jericho. Jericho represented the power of the 70 nations. So when the Jewish people came into the land of Israel, 7 times did they encircle Jericho, and each time represented the 10 spiritual spheres, the 10 sfirot. 10 times 7 equals, of course, 70, in order to destroy the power of the 70 nations who are trying to destroy the Jewish people or trying to stop the redemption of the Jewish people and the world. So that's number one. The last day of Sukkot reminds us of Jericho and the fall of the 70 nations. Point number two, the Sfat Emet, 140 years ago, in the Jewish year of 5642, he writes in his commentary on the Sukkot holiday, could be found in the end of the volume of Deuteronomy, the Sfat Emet, the rabbi of Ger, the Ger Rebbe. He writes there that on Yom Kippur, when we bring the goats and we push one off the tall mountain, not too far away from Jericho, by the way, that represents the fall of Esav, of the Christian world. And then he goes on to tell us that on Sukkot, and especially the last day, that represents the fall of Ishmael, of the world of Islam. So when we come to the last day or the last 2 days, remember these ideas. Pray, say those words, say Psalms, cry out. There's so much power in our words. On this last day especially, cry out. The Sfat Emet writes that more than any other nation, the nation of Islam is holding back the redemption for the Jewish people and the redemption of the entire world. So this is a time to pray for their downfall. And if we didn't do a good enough job for the downfall of Esav on Yom Kippur, we know that the final signature comes on the last day of Sukkot, on Hoshana Rabbah. So we still have time if we didn't do a good enough job for the downfall of the Christian world, that the idol worshiping Christian world. Okay, so that's the Sfat Emet. Third point, the holy Rabbi Meir of Raminov, he writes in his commentary on the Torah, in the end of the portion of Azinu, in the book of Deuteronomy, he writes an amazing concept. He brings down the Zohar on page 13 in Breshit. The Zohar says in black and white that if not for the sin of Adam and Eve, there would be no 70 nations. The 70 nations were created through the sin of Adam and Eve. If not for the sin of Adam and Eve, then there would only be the Jewish nation. So what we see today, the powers of evil within the nations who are going against God or beginning new religions, something that they are not allowed, part of the 7 laws of Noah, not to introduce a new religion. So part of this, okay, this all happened because of the sin of Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve, by their sins, created the 70 nations. And then Rabbi Meir of Raminov says an amazing concept. He says that every time a Jew sins, he gives power to the 70 nations. He creates, so to speak, the 70 nations. We are our worst enemies. We are shooting ourselves in our own foot. And he says, God has given us 7 days of Sukkot, that every time we shake our lulav and the 4 species, Have in mind that God should subjugate the 70 nations under the flag of the Jewish people, the flag of Hero Israel. God is one. Every time you shake, and we have 2 days left, and especially on the last day, this holiday has tremendous, if it's not by coincidence that we read about the downfall of the 70 nations of Gog and Magog on the Sukkot holiday, and especially the last day. This is the most special time of the year for the downfall of falsehood represented by Islam and by Christianity. So he writes, we know that the Talmud says the four species are considered to be weapons, and we must take these weapons in order to defeat the nation of Christianity and the nation of Islam, all types of foreign idol worshiping. So when we take our four species, remember what to concentrate on. We're shaking and we're asking God to subjugate these two forces of Christianity and also of Islam, and it should be subjugated to the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and under one God. So remember this very, very important lesson. Folks, I plead to you, especially at this time of year, those that have read from the tremendous blog, Palm Tree of Deborah. I'll try to leave the link below here. Go look at the last 3 or 4 days. Tremendous amount of resources there. It's what a disgrace, what a desecration of God's name. Even though there's a lockdown and the gates of Israel are closed, there are certain people, missionaries, enemies of God and the Jewish people that are entering at this time, coming into the land of Israel amazingly in order to convert the Jewish people, in order to do damage for the Jewish people. There's so much impurity and spiritual pollution and garbage that is coming down, especially in the land of Israel this time. And we have the power in our prayers and crying out. This is the time of their downfall. Remember, go over this video. I brought all these sources down that all speak the same direction. This is the time, if we take advantage, to cry out to Hashem that these Christians are invading the land of Israel. They have ways to get in, and they have special permission, and they have high sources within the government that are opening the doors for them and not for the Jewish people. Amazing. Shooting ourselves in our own leg. So folks, please pass on, share this urgent message for ourselves, I myself, us. We all must take advantage of this last 48 hours and especially the last 24 hours. So we have to get this message out as quick as possible. These are the items to concentrate in the next coming 48 hours. Blessings from the mountain of the blessings in Shechem, what the Gentiles call Nablus. It's called in the Torah Shechem. Blessings from us. Have a continued meaningful Sukkot. Love.